you see a lot of companies right now building their own L1. And for us, we felt excited about this idea where we can control anything that we want to build, and we don't have to deal with any other chain to talk to or anything like that. But at the same time, creating the security of a real, proper, decentralized chain is extremely difficult, as you know. And we basically get that for free with Ethereum. The network has been going on for a very long time now, and the security is stable and it's decentralized. The second thing that we get by having an L2 is that you get all this liquidity that is already part of all the EVM compatible chain. And that was also a very important decision factor for us. If we really want to bring the stock market into the chain, we need to have this liquidity. It's not going to be possible if it's in a closed loop or in a closed chain that nobody can access, and you need to have like 20 different hoops before you can bridge to that chain. So for us, that was kind of the two elements that we really wanted to focus on, and that's why we decided on building on Ethereum.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic. Today's show features the crypto general manager at Robinhood, Johann Kerbrat. One of the themes that we've been attempting to cover on the podcast is around this partnership between exchanges and DeFi, making DeFi opportunities available for crypto exchange customers. Part of that stems from an announcement at HCC this summer. Robinhood made a major announcement that they would be offering tokenized stock trading, along with other types of new products such as pre-IPO company trading. The big news around that was that Robinhood would be building its own Ethereum L2 called Robinhood Chain. And so we have been excited to talk to Johann about what went into that decision and where they see the Robinhood suite of products evolving now that they are building net new products on chain.
Yeah, we talk a lot with Johann about present day Robinhood, what users can do on the platform as of right now, and also where Robinhood is going and how he himself even categorizes what it is. Some other talking points we get into are Robinhood's view on prediction markets, ICOs, Robinhood Ventures. We talk about stablecoin integration with Robinhood, and even the integration of AI and how they're really leaning into that now on the platform as well.
Given the responsibility that Johann has in his role, what I was pleasantly surprised to find is he is an engineer through and through. So everything that we talk about comes from an engineering mindset. He is someone that is extremely nuanced in understanding why, for example, they are building an Ethereum L2, why they have built an Ethereum L2, the opportunity of tokenization and the need to be able to access Ethereum security. I was very surprised to get to hear him talk in detail about the fact that they were looking to lean on Ethereum security and also on Ethereum's liquidity as an Ethereum L2. So I think anyone listening to the podcast is going to come away understanding that there is a very thoughtful approach. This is not a BD deal behind the scenes in terms of how they are building these on-chain products. They are thinking as engineers, what is going to enable the most access for the most amount of Robinhood users to come on chain. So before we get started, just a quick reminder, you can subscribe at the-edge.xyz. That's the best place to subscribe to the Edge newsletter and to get real-time notifications for the Edge podcast anytime we release a new episode. You can also check out our link tree at edge_pod. That's the best place to subscribe to the Edge podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And then one last shout out to all of our sponsors that make the Edge podcast and the Edge newsletter possible. Sponsors like TOROS Finance and REDSTONE. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy the episode. Grow wealth exponentially. With TOROS leveraged tokens, when the market moves in your favor, your gains become parabolic. They're built to ride trends, auto-compounding profits. With TOROS, it's simple. Pick a vault, deposit, and your exposure is multiplied, maintained, and protected automatically against liquidations. TOROS reduces risk and keeps you in the market ready for the rebound. When markets dip, the vaults auto-adjust, softening losses and preserving your position. Just pick a token to multiply your returns. TOROS Finance, exponential gains with leveraged tokens. To learn more, go to toros.finance. REDSTONE is building the Oracle backbone to unlock real-world finance on-chain and next-gen DeFi. With modular gas-efficient feeds across over 110 chains, trusted by 170 clients, supporting over 1,300 assets, from value-accruing stablecoins, liquid staking and restaking tokens, to treasuries, private credit, and commodity tokens, REDSTONE delivers accurate real-time data where it matters most. The biggest platforms and protocols in DeFi today choose REDSTONE oracles, such as Athena, Securitize, BlackRock Biddle, Pendle, Spark, and Maple Finance. If you're building the future of finance on-chain, you need REDSTONE's leading modular blockchain oracle layer. To learn more, go to redstone.finance, and thanks to REDSTONE for supporting us here at the Edge Podcast and Edge Newsletter. Banks use your money to line the pockets of shareholders. Meanwhile, Solstice uses the same yield strategies to line your pockets. Introducing Yield Vault, Solana's best yield. A live delta neutral strategy with positive returns month over month for 3 years. Built for internet capital markets and powered by the stablecoin USX. To learn more, go to solstice.finance. Neutral is the next generation of crypto native yield. Their synthetic dollar NUSD taps into OTC arbitrage, funding rate inefficiencies, and delta neutral strategies to deliver premium, stable returns without taking market direction risk. Neutral is now officially live to mint NUSD and start earning neutral points. Learn more at neutral.fi. All right, let's introduce Johann Kerbrat, Crypto General Manager at Robinhood. Johann, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
We're going to talk all about what you've been building for the broadening crypto product suite at Robinhood. But let's talk first about your background. You worked at Uber, Airbnb, and then I noticed there's a pivot at some point. You move into a Web3 platform and eventually Robinhood. Can you talk to us about that journey? Like what ultimately leads you to move into this industry?
Yeah, I actually started my career as an engineer. So back in the days where I was from in France, I created a small company that was really focused on payments rails and connecting applications and websites to credit card payments providers and other systems like that. And we saw a lot of issues around credit card fraud. And the merchants were annoyed by it because, they will send the merchandise and they will get paid only a few days later, and sometimes there will be chargeback and all these kind of things. And that's also when the Bitcoin white paper started. And at the time, we really felt like Bitcoin was a solution for payments. Obviously, I was pretty wrong, and the idea of waiting 10 minutes to get your payments is actually not that fun if you go to a coffee shop or something like that. And that was before Lightning or anything like that. So moved on into a different part of my career, and then I worked at some of these big startups that you mentioned. And then I went back to a startup called Ironfish, where we were focusing on building a layer one using zero knowledge proof for privacy, basically. And that's more or less when I joined Robinhood as the head of engineering for the crypto group. And at the time, the idea was really like, how do we make Robinhood for crypto in general, where Robinhood is so easy to make very complicated problem accessible to everyone. And I felt like, how do we bring like the 20 million plus customer that Robinhood has into the crypto space? And so that's why I was so excited to join the company and really being able to build on top of all the rails that already exist. And the fun part about Robinhood and its crypto launch was really that they launched in 2018, in February of 2018. And so that was basically the biggest winter after all the craziness of 2017. And I feel like that's one of these big examples that shows that Vlad and Beju, our co-founders, really believe into the space because, everyone else was giving up in 2018 and actually Robinhood was doubling down and decided like, okay, we're going to launch crypto. We are going to make it a financial asset class on the platform and give access to everybody. And so when I joined, really the idea was to continue that journey.
We saw the rise of DeFi from like 2019 through 2021. That was like the first cycle where we started to see DeFi products go more mainstream. Meanwhile, Robinhood is offering trading for a number of assets. Where did you see the delineation between opportunity and maybe even competition? I would imagine as an exchange, you might have looked at DeFi at some point as, is this going to eat into our opportunity? But instead, I've clearly recognized you've flipped that on its head. You've, seen a way to build on chain and to lean into the space.
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I think, initially we felt that DeFi was amazing for many reasons, but was so complicated to access. As a user, you start with $1,000 on your bank account. You want to transfer it to a wallet. You have to pay some kind of fees to get into USDC, and then to transfer, you have to pay some kind of fees. And then you want to swap, you have to pay some kind of fees. And that's really this combination where we're like, okay, nobody like mainstream is going to do that. Like it's only going to be the more advanced user or the more DeFi user. And that was something that we felt was wrong. And something that I say often was that crypto was made by engineer for engineer, and we kind of left 99% of the population on the side. And so that's where we started to think about how do we make DeFi accessible. We started with a wallet that looked really much like Robinhood. So if you look at the Robinhood wallet, it's self-custody, you have your own private key, we don't control anything. But we made it look like Robinhood. We removed the gas fees so that you don't have to pay all over the place. You can fund from your Robinhood account, so you don't have to pay also like this kind of transfer. And we saw a lot more users starting to engage with it. But I think the reality is that it's still going to be a bit of a problem for a lot of people to think about DeFi as a place where their money is not FDIC insured, or there is no like kind of guarantee. If one of these smart contracts goes bust, you're kind of out of luck most of the time. Sometimes, there are solutions. So it's still something that we think like, is more targeting like advanced user, and there's still a lot of work to do to really bring a lot of people on chain. And that's kind of where we started with this idea of building our own chain where we can control some of the elements on how to build the layer and how to build kind of the interface that are going to work on the chain. And then based on that, we will be able to bring that into the app, bring that into the end of the user, and be able to give them like access to all these products that we are trying to do without having to pay all these fees or without having to have all this risk. But, the reality is also that DeFi is moving a lot faster. You see all these DEXs, perpetual DEX. There's a lot of innovation, and I think that's what's amazing for the industry, is that really, nothing is sleeping. If you go on vacation for a week, the world kind of change, on a nightly basis. And so that is kind of the most exciting part, but also the most complicated to give access to, millions of people, and not just like the few selects that can actually engage on DeFi.
That last point you made just on all the innovation that Robinhood's doing, I feel like, Robinhood kind of going in so many different directions and competing on so many different new frontiers has me as a user kind of being like, how do I even categorize Robinhood right now? So I would love to hear from you, Johann. How do you, what's the high level way you explain what Robinhood is, especially now that it's just doing so many different things?
Well, we kind of see it as a way where you can have all your financial needs within one app. So if you need a credit card, if you need to save money, or if you need to invest or go into crypto, you can do it within the same app. And I think it's a huge advantage because we are spending a lot less time convincing people to join one specific product, but more about, trusting Robinhood as a place where we will manage and help them manage their assets. I think, one of the big strengths of Robinhood at this point is that we have 11 business making 9 figures or more. And that also shows the resiliency that the company has to kind of handle any market condition. For a long time, people were saying that Robinhood will be a great company if the rates were very low, but if the rates goes up, then it will be a problem. And then the opposite was being said. And now, we can show that we have so much diversification that when something goes up, something else can maybe go down or vice versa. But I think for the customer, it's really about, focusing on them and how they use the different product. We see a lot of people excited about the fact that they can buy, for example, a Bitcoin ETF or a Bitcoin future, and also at the same time buy the underlying because they want to collect the premium or they want to have different type of strategy. We also have people that are investing on their retirement account, all within the same app. And I think that's a big value prop that is very hard to equal if you are, for example, on DeFi, because by default, as a user, you're only going to put one portion of your savings into a DeFi platform. The rest, you're probably going to keep it, somewhere else. You don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. The advantage with Robinhood is because you have all these products, you can actually put a lot more of your finance into the same app because we have all, these guarantees and insurance. And at the same time, you are still able to access all these products that you're trying to access to.
So I was checking on some of the flashier stats around Robinhood today. And just to remind listeners, Robinhood has $343 billion in assets deposited on the Robinhood platform, 27.1 million funded customers. And in the last 12 months, the net deposit growth rate is up 43%. All of these numbers, I think, speak to trust. Trust is not a feature that you end up advertising on the website. It's not something that users, I think, get super excited about, but I think it's at the core of why you use any platform. And DeFi, the core of DeFi is trust. So the fact that Robinhood announced in June, July at ETHCC that you would be tokenizing stocks on chain and that you would be building what I believe is best categorized as an Ethereum L2 or L3, this is a big moment. Can you talk to us about what goes into that evaluation framework? Like, this was a wonderful surprise for us as long-term Ethereum investors, but how did you arrive at, this decision to build on Ethereum?
Yeah, there was many decisions, and also to your point on trust, I think the other big advantage that Robinhood has is to be user-centric, and we can come back on that, but I think for us, putting the user in the middle and making sure that what we build is what the user is trying to do or trying to access has been really what makes our product successful. On the chain, so basically we were thinking about multiple aspects. You see a lot of companies right now building their own L1. And for us, we felt excited about this idea where we can control anything that we want to build, and we don't have to deal with any other chain to talk to or anything like that. But at the same time, creating the security of a real, proper, decentralized chain is extremely difficult, as you know. And we basically get that for free with Ethereum. The network has been going on for a very long time now, and the security is stable and it's decentralized. And I think that's really the key 2 points that we wanted to have. When you look at some of these new L1 that are being created, it's not really decentralized and it's not really secure. So at the end of the day, you're basically having like a fancy database that is probably a bit slower to use than an actual database. And so we didn't really see the value in that. With Ethereum, we get the security by default. The second thing that we get by having an L2 is that you get all this liquidity that is already part of all the EVM compatible chain. And that was also a very important decision factor for us. If we really want to bring the stock market into the chain, we need to have this liquidity. It's not going to be possible if it's in a closed loop or in a closed chain that nobody can access, and you need to have like 20 different hoops before you can bridge to that chain. So for us, that was kind of the two elements that we really wanted to focus on, and that's why we decided on building on Ethereum. And then we decided on Arbitrum mostly because we love the technology. There's a few things that we are excited about. For example, Stylus, it's a way that we can basically use different language into the chain, and we can build on top of that. We also have like the way that they prioritize transaction that is, we think, a better way than some of the competition. And so basically we'll use the Arbitrum stack and we'll create our own L2, which will make us also compatible with all the Arbitrum chains. And so we think it's kind of the best of all the world. But for us, the idea is like we will start with public stock, and then we think that you can tokenize anything really, not just stocks. You can it can be private stock, it can be art, it can be real estate, whatever you want to think of. And so we really wanted to have a platform that is kind of easy to build on, and we can keep adding on it. At the same time, we know that regulation are going to be hard on some of these products, especially when it comes to financial products. You always have different regulators. You have different rules depending on the region. If you're in the EU versus the US versus LATAM. And so we felt like we wanted to have our own layer that we could customize for these needs. And then anyone that is building on the chain will also be able to benefit from what we are building versus just putting everything in a contract that will be just good for the people that are using the Robin contracts. But so at this point, we announced the chain in June. We are in private testnet right now, and then we'll do more announcement in the future.
There is a detail that gets discussed in our circles around whether or not to run an Ethereum L2. You're one of the very few people, I think, in the world to be able to answer this. So I'm wondering, can you recount any of the details that went into thinking about the economics of running Robinhood Chain as an Ethereum L2? This is, I think, one of the selling points I've heard for folks that are considering creating their own L1 versus building an L2.
Well, there are two different aspects here. Like I said earlier, I think if you want to really decentralize and secure your own L1, can take a lot of cost. Depending on many things, obviously. If you're proof of work, you will need to, get your own ASICs. You will need to make sure that people can build them and distribute them into different places. You will need to have some miners that are doing it. Otherwise, you're the only one doing it. If you're doing a proof of stake, that's another story, but it's a bit easier on the hardware side, but you still need enough decentralization. And it gets really hard to do. And you've seen it with many of the other L1, even the big ones. Centralization is still a major issue. And sometimes there is an issue, everyone restart at the same time. It doesn't really feel decentralized, right? I think what you get with Ethereum is you get all of this for free. So you can focus your mental bandwidth and your resources into building on top of it instead of just doing the basic thing that everyone else is doing. On the sequencer fees and, revenue directly from the L2, that will depend really on how you're kind of building on top of it. Some will do very low fees, some will get a portion of the overall Ethereum fee. That's kind of depending on how you want your kind of business to run. On our side, it was less about the economics when we were thinking about L2 versus L1 and more about accessibility to the liquidity and all these kind of things. I think really that is key, because if you're alone in your private island, nobody can actually come in or come out. Sure, I'm sure we can get customers because we are Robinhood, we are a big platform, but we actually want to recreate the entire financial system on chain. So we need everyone to be able to come into our island.
The Mantle Global Hackathon is a 3-month competition inviting developers and founders to design and deploy scalable Web3 and RWA products on Mantle's modular Ethereum L2, built for high performance, low fees, and full EVM compatibility. With $150,000 in prizes and a $30,000 grand prize, now is the time to build. Register by December 31st, 2025. Submissions are due by January 15th, 2026. To learn more, go to mantle.to/hackathon/U4U, and don't forget to follow mantle_official on X.
Katana is an opinionated blockchain. Its opinion is that for DeFi adoption, there are two key things we need: deep liquidity and high yield.
To learn more, go to katana.network. DECIBEL is the new sound of trading, a fully on-chain trading engine supporting spot markets, perps, and yield to trade global markets. Enjoy trustless execution and sub-penny transaction fees. Join the future of trading at decibel.trade and access the Decibel testnet today.
I want to talk a bit more about this tokenization angle as well. Actually, I want to just read a tweet from Vlad himself here. He posted this on Twitter, November 10th, 2025. He says, "There was a time when you couldn't trade stocks on your phone. Imagine explaining to someone in 2035 that back in 2025, markets closed on weekends and holidays. Tokenization will unlock 24/7 markets, and once people experience it, they'll never go back. It's the same story every time. Access feels impossible until it's within reach." I want you to speak to that a bit, Johann. I guess from a user perspective, what does this open up for users of Robinhood and, the Robinhood community?
Yeah, I mean, many things. And it's a great tweet from Vlad. I don't think I should say it online, but I actually love the way that he thought about the comparison and the analogy. I think for us, there was a few moments where we realized how important was 24/7. The first one being obvious for a lot of people outside of the US is that you have time zone difference, right? And so we have customer in the EU. They can only start trading when it's like 4 p.m. almost for them. And the night goes on until 10 or 11, depending on where they are in Europe. And that's just Europe, right? The other aspect is that the world doesn't stop moving Friday at market close, right? You get, multiple events during weekends. You get our president that is tweeting sometime on Friday night. You get, things happening in the world. You can get also natural disaster, all these kind of things. And so, a lot of time you see these moments where something happens during the weekend and everyone is waiting for the opening before you can actually act on it. And you have also the story of like the future market that is very different from the stock market, but that's another debate. So we think 24/7 is going to be key. And the main reason why we think tokenization is a great way to get there is because you still have the traditional finance system that works on very old technology. You have a lot of exchanges or a lot of market makers that still need to restart their system on a daily basis. Or where they have like maintenance windows for 30 minutes or 1 hour. All of this is kind of being taken out by default when you use crypto technology. By default, crypto technology is 24/7. By default, you get fractionalization, so you don't have this like complexity of splitting a stock in the fractions. And the second aspect that we think is really important is instant transfer. So settlement, depending on where you are and what markets you have, but in the US, it's usually T+1 business day, meaning that on a 3 days weekend, for example, if you buy a stock on Friday afternoon, you're not going to receive it until the next Tuesday. And for a lot of people, like their liquidity is locked up into this system, right? And they have to wait the next Tuesday to be able to do something else. All of that can be solved with crypto technology here as well, because instant transfer, instant settlement, if you want them, allowing you to do more with your assets. So for example, as a user, you can take your tokenized stocks, you can put them on a lending pool, generate some capital or hedge against a position without having to wait the 3 days. So we think it's a big unlock. We think also that, more and more the traditional finance system is going to become not just 24/7, but also optimization for people. A lot of people still keep a lot of their cash in just pure cash because they don't want to wait in case there is an incident or something in their life for their bonds to sell or for their ETF to sell. But on crypto, you can actually do that in a second. So you will be able to actually optimize your finance a lot more, and therefore optimize your economics for you as a person and as a family.
I'm curious, since the announcement at ETHCC in the summer, what has been released? Like, one of the details that I've tracked really closely is there is close to 1,000 tokenized stocks now available for trading. It's all powered through the Robinhood chain. That is, I believe, strictly for EU customers. What else is coming? What else can we look forward to? What are you most excited about in terms of all that you talked about at ETHCC?
Yeah, I mean, so right now what we were really excited about was this tokenization engine that we built. So to your point, we launched in June with only 200 stocks. And now, to your point, we're almost at 1,000. And so that just showed how quickly we're able to increase the number of assets available. The other thing that we're really excited about is that we were able to get the new IPOs, the big one, almost immediately after the company were going public. And that just showed, how great it is when you actually own some part of the technology that you're interested in. And in our case, owning a tokenization engine was a key element that I think really gives us opportunity on what we can tokenize or not tokenize. The part that we are the most excited about is to start opening it up. Right now, to your point, you can access it in the EU, but you can't really do a lot of things with it. You cannot put it in lending pools or things like that. Once we launch the chain and it's in the public and anyone can access it, anyone can develop on it, the idea is really that people will be able to start, taking their stocks and doing whatever they want with it on chain. And then the second part is to open it to more users. Right now, to your point, it's only for European, mostly because of regulation, and they have frameworks that allows tokenized assets over there. But, in the future, we hope that we can also bring it in the US and in other parts of the world if we get the right regulation in place, basically.
One more thing I want to get your take on is just this idea of pre-IPO stocks. This is a pretty novel thing, just to have access to something, that hasn't IPO'd yet. So, yeah, I mean, I could give you my take, but I'd much rather hear yours. Just what is the significance and the importance of users getting access to these finally?
Well, we think it's one of the biggest injustice in finance still in the world. If you think about the US, you have to be an accredited investor to be able to access private market, meaning that basically you need to have 1 million in savings, or you need to have an income of 200K or plus. You have some other ways if you're, able to certify and everything. But for most people, that's kind of the limitation. So basically, if you're lucky, you're well done in terms of financial, you can access private investment, but for everyone else, for the rest of the population, you just can't even access it. And then the second issue is that even if you can access it, you still need to be able to find the right funds to be able to raise. The way that rules are done, it's actually for a CEO, it's complicated to have a lot of retail, and so what's happening is that basically people just don't give access. And so the companies are taking longer and longer to go public. If you look back in the days, how long it will take in the 90s for a company to go public versus now, it's very different because private companies are able to access more and more of venture capital easily at low cost. And so for them, it's actually an advantage to not have to deal with the aspect of being public and all the disclosure and the distraction coming from the price changing on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, the users that are oftentimes using the product the most are not able to access it. So, if you think about the big IPOs in tech, all of these people are just like retail, like you and I, using the platform, but they are not able to access it on an investment basis. And so we think this needs to change. And the reason why we did our giveaway in Cannes was to show to people that, hey, this is possible. The technology already exists. In the EU, we don't have these requirements that you need to be an accredited investor. You just have an assessment to do that shows that you understand what you're doing. Like it will show that you understand the risk, that you may lose your investment, these kind of things. But at the end, if you're able to assess and show that you understand what you're doing, you're able to access it. And the second aspect that we really think that private market will open is that you could actually change the way that people are raising capital. So right now, if you're a founder, you're going to go to VCs, you're going to raise multiple series, and then at some point you're going to talk to bankers, and they're going to tell you like, okay, you're good to go public. Here's pay your fee, pay the Nasdaq or the NYSE fee, and then you're public. You could actually replace all of this with crypto. Like you've seen a lot of foundation able to raise a decent amount of money just by launching a token. They can do different waves and stay within like the crypto markets. And then when it's time to go public, they can still do it using crypto tokens. That way they don't have to pay all these different fees. And we think that it's going to give a lot more access to a lot more founders across the world, the possibility to raise and create companies versus trying to found in places like, really there is only the US where you can that easily raise money and create companies. So we think tokenization really expand that to the rest of the world.
I think a lot of the ideas and trends that you're touching on, like we see that end game. I absolutely believe that some of the silliness that goes on in terms of all the middlemen you have to pay, that goes away with tokenization. Tokenization is just a bigger word for us to make everything tradable. And I think DeFi has demonstrated that investors, traders want to be able to trade absolutely anything. So, I mean, it makes sense as a broker that gives investors and traders access to these opportunities. And by abstracting away all the complexity of getting into DeFi, as much as I could, talk to folks about setting up their own wallet and being a self-sovereign investor, there is a large swath of the population that just wants things to be easier for themselves. They don't care about the self-sovereignty aspect. They want to be able to have secure access where they can trust Robinhood to basically protect what they're holding. So there's just a huge audience that you are catering to. On the pre-IPO front, where do you see the most pushback, or where's the biggest challenge to enabling this? Because we want that, but I recognize there's regulators, there's probably pushback from some of the companies and founders, but talk to us about the challenge there.
Yeah, I think regulation is still one of the biggest concerns. In the US, like I said, there is this accredited investor thing. In the EU, there are, other type of limitation, but I think the founders it's more of a cultural shift that is happening on a constant basis right now. When we did our announcement, we got a ton of founders reaching out and saying like, hey, I actually want you to, help tokenize my company. So, some of the largest private companies, they don't have this issue of raising capital, so they don't necessarily have the need for tokenization yet. But a lot of other companies that have a very retail-oriented product or that have a bit more difficulty to raise, they're actually more interested into tokenization. So I think it's just going to be a bit of this cultural shift. The same way that if you think about stablecoin, right? 5 or maybe 10 years ago, I'm getting old. The first time that people were talking about USDC or Tether, or people were like, okay, so you have $1, but you have this token that represents $1, and nobody was really trusting it. And it was pretty hard to get someone to actually accept that instead of hard cash. Now, if you look at today, you go to some countries, people will actually prefer you to send them USDC or USDT versus actual dollar, because they are going to be like, at least I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to check if the bill is real or not. But it took a bit of time for the culture to change and to get to accept the token version of it. And so I think we are kind of at the same stage for tokenized assets. We are the first, few months where you actually have a real representation of a stock on chain. And I think, people still need to understand that. They need to understand how does it work with their different type of account or their different type of financial system. But, slowly you will see people adopting it just because it's more efficient, it's more economics, and therefore, there are advantages to use it. And I think that's really what you're going to see also for private assets. For most of the people that are thinking that it's not needed today, you will see that in a few years they will understand the value, they will understand how much middlemen they were able to cut and save and actually distribute that to the shareholder. And so you will see them adopting it a lot faster.
In terms of the 24/7 access to trading tokenized stocks, which I think Vlad's tweet points out that 10 years from now, we're not going to have users talking about tokenized stocks. They're just going to say, I'm trading stocks, which, in this case are tokenized and trading on the Ethereum L2 Robinhood chain. What's the challenge to getting there? Like, what keeps you up at night to getting us to this 24/7 stock trading?
Yeah, liquidity is key. So the reason why we didn't launch right away with the 24/7 aspect is that we wanted to have enough liquidity to make sure that when the prices move, the token don't depeg from the actual underlying asset. And, if you look at some of our competing product, that's actually exactly what happens. The same kind of few days after they launch, the first weekend, things depegged and retail customer got hit. And so for us, we really want to focus on that and make sure that, when it's going to be tradable on a 24/7 basis, you will have enough liquidity to make sure that the price stay more or less stable with what is happening in the world. I think for us, that's kind of the main focus. And that's going back to the idea that I was saying earlier, where we are customer-centric, is that, we wanted to make sure that before we give something to our customer, we were feeling good about it. And we feel like it's in a good place, and therefore they can start using it and start engaging with it. Until we feel like we are there, we usually hold the product, or we keep them in smaller rollout or in beta or whatever you want to call it, just because, we don't want to hurt customer at the end of the day.
As a DeFi investor, I turn to Maple for permissionless institutional quality yield in a single liquid asset backed by over-collateralized loans. Maple's SYRUPUSDC and SYRUPUSDT are now supported as collateral for enhanced yields on major DeFi liquidity hubs such as Pendle, Fluid, Camino, Jupiter, Morpho, and Aave. To learn more about Maple, go to maple.finance. River is building a chain abstraction stablecoin system that connects assets, liquidity, and yield across multiple chains. Season 3 is live. Earn River points by using SAT-USD in DeFi such as Pendle, PancakeSwap, and Uniswap. Stake River points to accumulate more or convert points to River tokens whenever you like. To learn more, go to river.inc. Hey folks, I want to tell you about our sponsor GEARBOX, the protocol that reimagines on-chain lending. With GEARBOX, you can access 10x credit across DeFi or lend for passive yields with single asset deposits and no impermanent loss. Users can access leverage to margin trade, stake, farm, and more. To learn more about GEARBOX, go to gearbox.fi. Puffer Institutional delivers secure, high-yield Ethereum staking built for institutions. With battle-tested security, granular access controls, and the ability to boost APY by securing multiple AVSs, Puffer gives institutions full control and optimized returns. Puffer is also behind the Unify-based rollup, aiming to transform Ethereum's future in a world where all L2s are working together. To learn more, go to institutional.puffer.fi.
So, Johann, we have a bunch of other topics we want to get to, but maybe why don't we just finish off on what I believe was another part of the CAN announcement, these advanced trading features. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think, one thing that people were really, focusing on when they were thinking about Robinhood and crypto for a long time was that Robinhood was maybe for the more like simple user that just need to buy a little Bitcoin or Ethereum and call it a day. But a lot of our focus for the past 2 years have been on more advanced features. So we acquired an exchange called Bitstamp. We also created this product called Robinhood Legend, which is a very advanced kind of web interface where you can create any type of charts. You can add hundreds of indicators on it and really kind of personalize your journey as an investor. And we also focused a lot on the advanced kind of crypto investor. So for a long time, you only had one pricing on Robinhood. Now we have a product called Smart Exchange Routing with volume tiers that basically based on how much you trade, you will pay a lot less. And for the most advanced trader, we go all the way down to 3 basis points, which is, a lot cheaper than a lot of the competition. So that's something that, we want to keep focusing on because we feel like Robinhood, to be really the app that everyone uses for all their financial needs to cater not just to the simple day-to-day user, but also the more advanced crypto traders or advanced trader in equities.
Something else I've been curious about. So coming into this interview with you, there was a number of sort of themes or verticals, whatever you want to call them, that I was curious how Robinhood's thinking about them. And as a Canadian, I don't even have access to Robinhood. So I knew there was involvement with prediction markets on Robinhood, but, being in crypto, there's a million things that happen. You can't stay up on everything. And so Robinhood has a prediction market product. I want to know kind of like what do you foresee with that vertical of the Robinhood platform? Is that something that ultimately you're really excited about? Just, what's your thoughts with where that is going long term?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting market, and I think you saw it in the past few months for very big, important moments. You could actually see where people's mind was at, and actually kind of understand what was the outcome even before the outcome was announced. So we saw it during the presidential election or even the mayor election in New York, and I think it's going to be a bit of a culture shift again, where people are not just going to follow the news or read on X to understand what's going on, but they're also going to look at prediction market. On the financial asset class of things, I also think it's really interesting because for the first time, you can actually hedge in different ways what's going to happen in the future. So for example, right now, if I tell you I think AI is going to, take my job, you have different ways to do it. You will maybe buy NVIDIA, or you will maybe buy AMD or one of these big giant AI company. But now you can also use a market around AI to actually hedge against or for something that may happen. And so I think it's going to change drastically how people think about financial events and how things are evolving, and gives you a lot more options to actually control and give you access to ways to hedge, where before only the more advanced hedge funds were able to do that. So for us, it's definitely something that we believe is a big market. That's why we have implemented such a great feature within the app, and that's also why we're doing the joint venture that we just announced. But I really think we're just at the beginning of this industry.
Johann, can you share any thoughts on a token launch platform for Robinhood? We just saw Monad launched a token sale. They raised $269 million across 85,000 participants on Coinbase. What are your thoughts? Obviously, major competitor to you folks, but I'm thinking there's got to be some future here where we see ICOs on Robinhood.
Yeah, it's something that is still very interesting with the current regulatory aspect. Technically, ICO should still be considered a security, and so I think for us it's a bit more of a question on how do we build it the right way? We have a product called IPO Access where companies that are going public can, allocate a portion of their share to retail investor, and it's been doing very, very well for all the IPO that we supported recently. And I think the idea of giving access to retail to some of these companies, like I was saying earlier, is something that we really see a lot of value in, and we see our customer engaging with it. But exactly how is it going to work? Is it going to be the exact same as Coinbase or as different product? I think it's a bit too early for me to say here. But like I was saying earlier, the idea that you can raise on private market through tokens and then take this token to multiple round of raise and potentially go public through tokenization, I definitely think it's where the world is moving.
One thing you touched on earlier, Johann, you talked about how early Robinhood was to embracing crypto. I think all the way back in 2018, you said. I also noticed just again, when, really nobody was paying too much attention to crypto, Vlad was just a massive early proponent well before the regulatory winds changed. He was almost like, kind of saw what was coming down the pipe. Maybe, I don't know, but his timing was incredible, or your timing, or whoever's decision this was to kind of really lean in. But anyways, one of the major things I think Robinhood's been early to integrating is stablecoins. I would just love to get your view there. And then something that myself and DeFi Dad stumbled across a while back was this USDG, but honestly, we didn't even know a lot about it. Maybe you could also speak to that if you can kind of tie those together.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, Vlad is a extreme visionary. I think he has a sense of where things are moving, where the puck is going, and it's been very inspiring for me to understand how I don't think I actually understand how his brain is working, but I think the way that he thinks about products is something that I inspire to do and to get better at on a daily basis. And I really think that I'm lucky on a daily basis to be able to work with him. On the crypto side, for a long time, the easiest solution for him will have been to just give up like some other player have done in the space. When we received our Wells notice from the SEC, when there was discussion, Webull was separating crypto from their main app. SoFi shut down their crypto product. Like many ways for Vlad to have just followed the rest of the group and say like, what, I'm throwing the towel as well. But he had this big understanding and deep understanding of the space and really felt like this is the future, like the way that the financial system will operate in the future. And so that was, really an inspiration to see. I think on the stablecoin, we always felt like, if you want to be able to use all these DeFi products, you need to be able to get the same value that you have on your bank account on chain for the same price. And that's why when we started to support USDC, we never charge any spread or any fee or anything like that. So if you buy 10 USDC on the platform, we charge you $10 and that's it. And for us, that was really, really important. The one thing that we started to be, I'm not going to say annoyed at, but I will say maybe disappointed by is that all the fee that the issuer was starting to charge between the minting fee, the burning fee, and then all the revenue coming from the NIM of the reserve of the assets of the dollar, we're also going straight into the issuer pocket. And I just think that it's not necessarily a great product for the user. So if I'm a retail user and I have $10, I can put it on my banking account and get 3.5% or whatever is the rate these days. Or I can put it in 10 USDC and I get 0, unless you're using Coinbase. But if you want to use it on your own wallet, you get 0. And that to me didn't feel really right, especially if we want to encourage more and more people to get on chain and to do more with the asset, to lend their assets or to borrow or whatever, like we need to remove this difference. Otherwise, it just makes more sense to keep on traditional rails. And so that was kind of the idea behind USDG. So it's a consortium of companies, not just Robinhood. The issuer is Paxos, but Kraken is one of the founders. Multiple other big exchanges like OKX and Bullish have joined. And the idea is basically that we can redistribute the revenue coming from the assets with the participant. And that way, you don't have this massive cliff between having your asset on chain or off chain, and you can benefit from it. So we announced that we were entering the consortium. I think recently USDG passed $1 billion in market cap, so still very small, but it's still not in a lot of places. Like we don't support it on Robinhood just yet. And the goal is that now that the Genius Act has passed in the US, and once Paxos is able to issue directly through the Genius Act, we will be able to support it on the platform and make it available to more and more people.
So a while back, I was trying to transfer some liquidity into Robinhood, and my gut was I'm going to, move, let's say, stablecoins through Coinbase, and then I'm going to move that back out to my bank account. And so with USDG, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm just going to swap to USDG and got my money right into the Robinhood app. And that is a huge benefit. Like that for someone like me, a DeFi native user who does want to be able to trade with stock exposure, anything that Robinhood would enable me to get access to. That was huge. Can you remind us, is there any opportunity then to lend USDG on the Robinhood platform? I know the DeFi native opportunities on chain because we cover that in Yields of the Week in our newsletter. But yeah, is that coming? Is there any opportunity right now to earn yield through the Robinhood app with USDG?
So not yet, but it is definitely something that our customers are asking for. I think right now we focused more on our wallet where you can access to all the DeFi direct options like you mentioned. But I do want at some point to make it easier and easier for people, especially because I think for a lot of people, the aspect of going into a DeFi pool is still a bit scary. Like, if you think about all the words that are being used, it's still very complicated for a lot of people. Like, you think about Stakehouse or Aave or Morpho or whatever, like, it's all words that don't really mean anything for the classic model. And so we want to make it more accessible within the main app. But right now, I think our main focus has been more onto our tokenized product, where, people can still get access to a lot of yield-generating kind of assets through the tokenized version of it. And, in the future, we do want to focus on that as well.
Recently, there was an announcement with Robinhood Ventures that there was an investment or strategic partnership with Lighter. Talk to us about that. That seemed like headline news for the end of the year here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we were really excited by it. I think, we know Vlad, the founder of Lighter, for a long time. And actually, Vlad, our founder, also knows him very well. And the idea was really like perps and perpetual is an asset class that we really, really believe in. We actually launched it in the EU, and we see how people are excited about this product. And we feel like there's a lot more to do on it. And perps can exist for any type of assets, not just classic crypto assets. They can also exist for tokenized stocks or prediction market or whatever you want. So we really liked how Lighter was able to navigate kind of the Black Friday 10-10, when there was a lot of liquidity crisis, and you saw a lot of platform doing things that, it's not really clear what really happened, but, a lot of complaint around their IDL process or around their liquidity management process. And so what we saw is that Lighter was actually doing a lot of great things. We think the technology is great. The fact that they are using zero knowledge proof in a lot of ways to kind of have a second way to verify what's going on without having to just necessarily trust the other party, I think is key. And so the investment is really about giving us, exposure to the growth of Lighter, and also for us, it's a great way to stay afloat of the industry and making sure that if something develops there, we are part of it. But we think that there are great companies, there are great startups in the space, and I hope that they continue to grow as fast as they've been growing so far.
One thing that we've seen with Hyperliquid is they've got something called builder codes where other front ends can use the Hyperliquid backend that they've created, this amazing trading execution engine. Is that something that could potentially happen between Lighter and Robinhood, where maybe Lighter is the backend and Robinhood is using Lighter in the back end, but as the front end? Is that something that you think could play out in the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've always been, focused on. For example, we've always been more focused on the distribution angle than the actual exchange that is behind. And so, for example, on crypto retail, we have many market maker and exchanges, and it's only this year basically that we have our own exchange with the acquisition of Bitstamp. But before that, we didn't necessarily feel the need, and having multiple exchange give you a lot of stability on the liquidity, on making sure you don't have a point of failure, and also like having very tight prices. So we think that it's a bit the same thing for other products like perpetuals, where right now the product that we offer in the EU is using Bitstamp for the perpetual liquidity, but in the future you could think about adding more to offer more product and to offer more stability. So Lighter is one option, HL is another option, and there are many more. But I think in the DeFi space, for us it's a bit focused. It's a bigger focus for us to understand how perps are evolving, and understanding like how do we make sure that we can give access to our customer to this type of products.
One final product we haven't covered. We recently did an interview about the new ETH-backed loans on Coinbase. Of course, had us thinking of you with Robinhood. Is there any chance that we'll see crypto collateralized loans in the near future on Robinhood?
Yeah, it's something that is being asked more and more. I think for us, it was not necessarily the main focus for a long time, just because there was less demand. But I think now that the asset have appreciated, a lot of people are not selling necessarily, and so they are trying to do more things. So I think kind of similar to what I was saying earlier, like plenty of way to do it on DeFi. And so I think for us, the question is more like, how do we give access to this type of product to customer and making sure that they understand what they are doing versus building it in-house every single of these products.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think this also will benefit from the work you all are doing with tokenized stocks. Anytime someone mentions tokenized stocks, my response is that would actually push me to hold more stock exposure than I do. I think that I'm always going to be more heavy into crypto, but a part of that has been the capital efficiency, being able to access leverage, or in some cases just very low leverage, being able to borrow against that. But suddenly, if I can borrow against my tokenized Google stock or tokenized Tesla stock, like that just opens up like a whole new world of possibilities for me.
That's really the key. And I think the thing that you mentioned is a control. It's like if you want to get a mortgage for your house, you get a mortgage, and then that mortgage gets sold to different provider. I don't even know who is it at the end of the day, because it's been changing hands all this time. On DeFi, you actually control the contract, right? You know what's going on. You're the one acting. And I think that's a big key for people like you and me. But I also think a lot of these benefits can be translated into economics benefits. The idea that to apply for a loan, you have to do all this paperwork that takes a long time for you to implement, but also for someone to read it, for someone else to underwrite it. All of this can be automated a lot more with smart contracts and the technology behind it. And so you can just save a lot of money for a lot of people, or give lower leverage or higher leverage based on their profile. And at the end, they can save money. So I think it's going to be a big game changer.
I'm curious what you think Robinhood will look like, say, 5 years into the future from now. What does the Robinhood suite of products look like?
I think it's just going to be a lot more of what we have already announced. So, for example, we just started the rollout of banking, which is really a private banking for everybody. I think that's going to take more and more. You will see the intersection of DeFi and CeFi happening between like all the different products that we have. And basically, like, Robinhood will start utilizing a lot more of the crypto and blockchain technology to power some of its features, to redistribute value again to the customer. But that's really where, I think it's going to evolve. And then you have really this addition of AI that we're starting to put more and more in front of our customer. Like, for example, you can see pulse of what's going on in the crypto market when you go on a Bitcoin page or an Ethereum page, and it tells you a bit more like, what are the indicators that are changing, or why is the price moving a certain way. And we basically want to give that more and more to our customers so that they can educate themselves, and they can also spend less time searching for things on X or on Google, and actually just more like knowing directly what is happening and then deciding what is their strategy based on the information that they are getting. So, I'm really excited about the future for Robinhood. I think there is a lot that we have already announced, but a lot that is currently being built, and it's going to be pretty awesome to see all these products kind of interact with each other.
Johann, thank you so much for coming on with us. I think this is a great place for us to start to wrap up. So I want to remind our listeners they can learn more about Robinhood by going to robinhood.com, follow Robinhood app on X, and then follow Johann's personal account. It's just his first, last name, and we'll put that into the show notes so you can easily find that. And then, Johann, any final word for us before we go?
No, excited to be back in the office after the Turkey Day, and a lot of price activity on the market. So, excited to see where we are after this podcast.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. To stay up to date with future episodes, plus get expert tips, strategies, and exclusive content, subscribe to our free newsletter at the-edge.xyz.